Welcome to Haunt Talk. I'm Kim. This is Josh. Today we're going to do something a little different. Normally you tune in and see us giving reviews. Today we're just going to kind of talk a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much this is going to be about two different haunted hayrides actually, but it's pretty much their first year or their really early stages, and they're just kind of starting off, so we don't really feel that it's fair to be judging them with a score like that because, like I said, they're so new.
A lot of times, places will start up and they're not going to be amazing from the first time, but
right.
You can tell by the first time of going to place if they have potential, if you think it's going to get better,
right,
based on what they have. And so that's mostly what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think we'll talk about the one that we went to first. It's called Frightmare Forest, and it is in Youngstown, Ohio.
Mm-hmm. This is not their first year.
I think it's their third.
Maybe.
I think it's their third.
You had talked about, in our pre-talk episode, about how you had tried to go to this place last year.
Right. Yeah, I tried to go there last year with a couple of my friends.
And you said when you got there, it looked like they weren't even...
Right.
anything.
Yeah, there wasn't really a sign, or there was a really small sign, but it was barely lit. So upon arrival, they did improve on that from last year. I mean, I didn't actually go, so I don't know if they proved anything else, but they have a nice banner, and you drive through like a little archway thing that says Frightmare Forest.
It was definitely easy to know where they were.
Yeah, it was.
Which I was glad about, because I was kind of nervous about that going in. Like, is it going to be like, oh, I don't know.
Right, exactly.
Because I hate going to a place and it's awkward. Like, if you don't think you're in the right spot, you don't know where to go. Right. So it's definitely good to know you're in the right place.
Mm-hmm.
So it was actually, we had discount bracelets, so it was only $6 for us, which is really cheap.
That's like really, really cheap. Even for a first year haunted house, it's cheap. It's originally $8 though, which is still really cheap. But it's actually those, I'm not wearing it now, but the bracelets that we had on that we got from Factory of Terror, the Haunted Ohio bracelets. If you get those, some haunted houses do the $2 off discounts.
Yeah. And the low price is something we have discussed for other places. If you're a new haunt, it is a great idea to keep your price that low.
Yeah, you should be like in the $10-ish range. You shouldn't be 20 or something.
If it was higher than 10, with it being new and us not knowing about it, probably wouldn't have went. So definitely having that low price brought us in.
Right, because as I said the last time, it's just like any kind of loyalty brand. If you see some place that's $15 and you know another haunted house you've gone to years before is $15, you're like, that's new. I know I like this one. You might not just have $15 just to blow on things. So
yeah. So we got there. Their ticket booth was right up front, which is good. It was kind of hard to see where to go.
It wasn't marked. It wasn't marked that it was a ticket booth. There's just some people sitting in like a little tarp, and they have like a little box that they take the money from. But I mean, like they tell you right there. So
yeah. So then you go back. There was like 4 other people there.
Yeah, there wasn't many.
Yeah.
And as she's saying, the pathway back wasn't well lit at all. There's just like a trail of tiny itty bitty little like those ground solar lamps that people will put in their yard for gardens or whatever, and you just kind of follow those, and you really can't see anything. There's a lot, and then the ground is very uneven and potholey.
Yeah, so based on what we saw walking up, my expectations for this place were not high at all. I was like, well, if nothing else, I paid $6 to go on a hayride.
Right.
Through the woods.
Which
on its own is fine.
Yeah, you can go to day hay rides, and they don't do anything like that. They just kind of drive you around a field for like that much. So I mean,
and it wasn't amazing, but it was a lot better than I expected it to be, honestly.
Right. The biggest problem that they had was the lighting. The lighting was pretty bad. The reason for this is because if you're going to light a haunted hayride, you have pretty much 2 options. Well, I guess 3. You can use like battery-operated type of lamps, which you can't get very powerful lights using that at all. Generators, which generators are expensive. The gas to run them is extremely expensive. And then pretty much the only other thing is to run extension cords. But to the start of the hayride, they take you through a really long-ass field, like away from their property. So the extension cord thing I don't even think would be not even a reasonable idea.
The only lighting they did have were a bunch of those little miniature strobe lights.
Right, they had a lot of strobe.
There was so many strobe lights.
So strobe lights is what lit up 90% of their scene. There's a couple that had regular lights, but most of them were
most of it was strobe lights.
Right.
Which, again, you're going through a dark woods on a hayride. Strobe lights do kind of give it a cool effect.
Right. I'd say the biggest highlight of this one is the woods itself. It has a lot of potential. I mean, it's very claustrophobic, the woods is, and very, at least seemingly dense at night. Yeah, once you're in there, it's like just pitch black. And they actually did manage to get me a couple times because it's just really dark and you can't see them. And they hid pretty well, actually.
My favorite thing, something I didn't expect. You're going through, and up through the trees, there's like those hanging spiders, and we went through a couple, and then the last one just dropped.
Yeah, it just drops and just hits you in the head.
Yeah, and there was another prop they have that they just go right through. It was this big man-looking thing.
Yeah, like, yeah.
And it had rubber hands, and they just go right through it, and it
just comes back and slaps you.
Yep, it slapped me right across the face. I'm like, oh, hand in my face.
Which is pretty cool. I like that. Anytime there's some kind of like you actually get in contact with things, is cool.
Yeah.
They advertised. Well, I don't really know if they advertised. I thought it was on the website, but I did find that on Facebook, and they claim that it's a 45-minute ride. It was only 25. I'd say.
Yeah, it was 25.
A lot of that's riding through a field. I mean, it actually felt fairly good length, though. They cover a fair amount of ground, and I mean, it's $6 or $8, which still
$8 for even
yeah
almost a half an hour hayride is still.
I mean,
it's good.
Exactly. I mean, they did manage to have. They had some sound system. They had the sound system back in the one part. They did have a couple cool scenes.
They had quite a few actors.
Yeah, they did have quite a few actors, or at least seemingly. I think you could see them. They were running because they only had one hay wagon going, so you could just tell it's an early on because of this. You'd go to one scene, they'd scare you, and then you would like be going. You could see them running through the woods, going to the next scene to get you, and I think that's really cool. And it's also, you do a lot of work for the actors because they have to just run from scene to scene, you know, and just like hustle and get there and try to hide again.
Once they're bigger, I'm sure they'll get more people out to volunteer and do the acting, but the few actors they did have, it made it seem like there was a lot of actors because they were at every scene.
It's just, and everyone is dedicated. They actually got up there and they'd say things to you, and there's even some little kid actors, and they weren't too bad themselves. And the people that they did, and some of them actually did have fairly interesting lines, and they were pretty good in character and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Someone asked if we wanted to play hide and go die. Never heard that before.
Play hide and go die.
Yeah. So it was original.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and like they did have like a whole graveyard scene they made. The only bad thing was that there was no light on it at all, so you couldn't see it.
Yeah, there were strobe lights on it.
Yeah, actually, I don't even think there was on this graveyard.
There was some.
Yeah, because I know they had like
stones.
one glowing skull. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I couldn't make out almost anything. But
if we hadn't gone under a thing that said cemetery, I might have questioned what we were in. Like, are those rocks?
Right. But I mean, at least they put the effort to make this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's on a cool farm setting, and I think they do have a concession stand there and stuff, and...
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I had to ask them where the porta potty was.
Yep. But really, I mean, if you're close to the Youngstown area, you know, and you don't have anything to do, they're open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. They're not open Sunday. They open at, I believe, 7 o'clock, and they're probably open until like 11 or so. I would say check it out. I mean, it's really cheap. I mean, it's also a good one, you know, if you do one haunted house, you know, and like you're like, oh, I really want to do another, but I don't have that much money. Well, then you can use that one as like a little appetizer, dessert to your main haunted house. I mean, again, it's not in the stages where I can say like this is the best thing ever, but I mean, it's $6 or $8,
and it has potential,
right? And it's
which is one of the things we said we were gonna mainly talk about is if the place has potential, and it does.
And the people there all seem nice. They all asked us, you know, did we have a good time? They were very courteous. For example, my mom had actually went with us when we went, and she has a bad knee, and she couldn't get up in the hay wagon, so the people got off the tractor and were actually helping her get up and stuff, which is nice.
I think when we got off, there was like 4 of them there just
trying to help her down. And I just thought that was kind of nice, you know, that they actually care enough, and and they all seemed pretty nice. So I mean, I think that this place, you know, if more people that get there, the more money they're able to raise and put into the place, it can eventually become something pretty cool.
Yep.
Right. So I guess that brings us into the next one, which we don't really remember what it's called. It doesn't have like a real creative name. It's just called like the Haunted
Nightmare.
It's like Haunted Nightmare Hayride or Nightmare Haunted Hayride.
Something like that.
It's
in Salem, Ohio.
Yeah.
Which is
yeah, it's
where
on
we live.
it's on 45. To kind of help you find it, it's close to Salem. That's Salem Hills, right? I think, because I know there's two golf clubs. It's a golf club, but there's two. I don't remember if that's Salem Hills or not.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, okay, it's really close to Real Life Christian Academy. Search that. Search Salem, Ohio, Real Life Christian Academy, and it is on 45. It runs right by there. It's like a minute or less away from that, and it's right on the road. They have a nice sign with the haunted house up on front.
This has been it was a hayride a long while ago. You worked there.
Yeah, I actually used to work there. I mean, they put quite a bit of work into it, and I mean, they had some pretty cool scenes in the time. And then it closed down for a couple years too. It came back for 1 year. I don't even think I went to it, and then it closed down again for a few more.
One thing I was really impressed by, we were talking to the guy that puts it on while we were waiting for the wagon, and all the money they get goes straight to, they pick a charity this year that all of their money they make is going to Akron Children's Hospital.
Which, I mean, right there, that's a great cause.
Yeah.
So, and he said, everything there is donated. They don't even take any money to put it back into the haunt. They just get donations and they get sponsors and that. Also, we had talked to him a while before the hayride came back because they only had one running. And it is a really long hayride, actually. It was at least 30 minutes.
I think it was 35.
35? Okay. What was it? But, because he's saying that they started late. I think he said they didn't start till April, right? Which that's pretty late in the year. Because they didn't even start concepting things, as far as I understand, until then.
Yeah, he wasn't even going to do it, and then someone told him, like, hey, why don't you bring this back? And
right, and they did. And I'm kind of glad they did, actually, because I always used to like it when I was younger. It also, like Frightmare Forest, has a really nice setting.
There's so much land there.
There's a lot of land there.
And they use quite a bit of it.
Yeah, they use quite a bit. They didn't use, not a little less than half. They used to have more when I used to work there, but they weren't able to open that much up. But they still utilized what they had pretty well, I think.
And by talking to him, he said that for next year he wants to have even more, use up more of the land, because now he has more time to plan it and think about what all he wants to put into it.
Yeah, because he said he wants to start from the get-go this year, and most haunts start, which is, well, a lot of them start tearing down in November to rebuild the things they want to rebuild, but I don't know how much they're going to tear down there.
And again, this was, I don't know if you mentioned the price.
No, I didn't.
It was $10.
Yeah, it was $10.
Which, like we mentioned, anything 10 or under for a new haunt, and you're getting a long hayride, it's...
Yeah, and it goes to charity.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like, technically this isn't their first year, but it is, because they haven't done it for such a long time. They had to rebuild or restore everything that was there. They didn't have a lot of scenes. They had a few, though. They had a nice, like, little cabin thing that you drove by, which was pretty impressive. He was kind of funny, but also a creepy actor.
Yeah.
They had like a campground. It was a campground scene, with the guy with the chainsaw, which actually started mixing. There's one at the chainsaw coming after you, and then another one just comes out of nowhere, and they kind of do the whole dual chainsaw thing. But I also mentioned there was only 3 of us on the ride, with one of our friends who actually happened to also be there at the time that we got to ride with. But I think the best part of it was probably the barn.
Yep, that's what I was about to say, was the barn. You come up to it. Well, we saw it going down, and you're like, oh, we're not going to go through that? And then coming back, we did.
Yeah, you go through it, because you kind of like retake the same path, because it used to loop around, but like I said, they couldn't open that this year. So then they reuse a small portion of the path to come back. Yeah.
And then, so the tractor goes up through, and it stops, and actors on both sides just close the curtain. And then they turn all the lights off, and
they start playing like the kind of like a more like rock type music, which I mean I've seen it before, but the actors in there just really just full.
I think there was probably only 2 actors, 2 or 3 actors,
yeah,
and I don't get where they were coming from. They were all over the place.
They were crawling. I was kind of like watching, but still, like, and they were ninja. I mean, they were literally crawling on the ground so we couldn't see them. And I'd like look over where you get on the hay wagon, and I just see one of their heads peeking out when the lights would turn back on, and
they were everywhere.
Yeah, and they got us quite a few times for these 2 people. And considering we were the only ones in the hayride, they still managed to ninja around, because sometimes the lights would turn on and they wouldn't be there. And then, you know, like 2 more times, then they would be, so.
That's the part I was impressed by. It was the same 2 people over and over again.
And they probably locked us in there for 5 minutes, because you go
We
in
were
and
in there a while.
yeah. So you go in, there's no fog, and then they just slowly fill it up. So by the time you leave, like, you can barely see anything in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that was definitely cool.
Yeah. I don't really know if there's too much more to talk about with that one. Again, I highly recommend it. The same with the other one, you know, if you want to go to another one. They're open till 1 o'clock in the morning,
Mm.
long as the weather permits. Because, I mean, like, there's only one other person in the hayride. I don't know if they shut down early, if there's no one there at all. But the sign says 1 o'clock, but they're only open on Saturdays, which I assume, hopefully, next year they're open on more, because we almost didn't get to go.
Mm.
We just luckily got back in time from our next haunt review's house, Wells Township, and we didn't get there till like almost midnight. It was like
Yeah.
11:30 when we left our place. So
One thing I want to mention about both of these places, especially in Salem, I know quite a few people with kids that, you know, they're like, well, my kid's kind of almost the age where they might be okay with haunted houses. Both of these are definitely good places to take your kids
Right.
to see if they're ready.
right, because they don't really touch you. And
Yeah, there's enough scares to know if your kid's going to be able to handle something, but not too much to where
right,
it's going to torment them.
and it like I know the later one you're talking about, the one on 45. They had said, you know, it's family friendly, so, you know, if your kid's really freaking out, I assume that they're probably told, you know, not to really bother the child too much. So if you're scared, to take it. But, I mean, they still manage to get us, and we go to these things all the time. You know, it wasn't like, you know, like terrified or anything, but like...
I screamed once, which for me is...
Right. I don't think I really scream, but I'm more startled and kind of like, ugh, like that. But, I mean, they startled me quite a few times, which... The same thing for haunted hayrides, because it can be hard to actually startle people on haunted hayrides.
Especially with not having a ton of actors or...
And I also have to mention that it's really, really muddy out there. And I caught people, the one that scared the crap out of her, because she was actually talking to my mom.
I was in mid-conversation.
Right, in mid-conversation, I'm sitting there, and the guy is crawling across the muddy-ass ground like this, and all of a sudden just jumps up, and he's like, blah! And it was awesome.
I don't even know what I was talking... I don't even think I finished my sentence. I was... talking about something, and then I just...
Right? I love that you scream. That was awesome.
I wasn't expecting that. Which I guess is the point.
Right. But, so pretty much, you know, we just wanted to talk about these songs because they didn't want to really give them full-out scores. But, you said if you're a new haunt, that's just kind of like the rules to play by, you know. Try to do something inventive if you're a new haunt, too. Like, you know, just because everyone has the vortex tunnel, like we mentioned, you don't have to have that. Just because everyone has a body bag room. You don't have to do that. Think of something that would really freak people out. You can do all kinds of things without a huge budget. Be interactive with it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, make people discover things. Like, for example, the Factory of Terror's beginning, I had mentioned how they have the interactive element of having to pull back the curtains yourself. You know, there's just something freaky about actually you having to go through and find something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just be creative with what you have. You don't have to have millions of dollars, you know, and have all the state-of-the-art props. You just have to think what scares me, and you know that probably translates into what scares other people. Go to other haunted houses. Maybe you think, well, I want to open one up, but maybe you should wait a year. Go to as many as you can afford to the year before and see what they do. Use those ideas to create your own.
And then see, like, oh, they did that, that's a cool idea, but here's how I would like to see it done better.
Right.
And again, making your customers part of the scene is really a big... I mean, it's cool to have an interesting scene going on, but if you can include the customer in that scene,
exactly, or
it makes it that much better for them.
And you can mix it up too. You don't have to, you know, one scene. That's also a great thing to throw away. Make one scene. You know, you can do like kind of static where you're not, the customers aren't involved. In the next scene, they might think that's what's going to happen, but they're actually right in the middle of it, and you know, you can really surprise them that way. And also, you know, don't go crazy with darkness, but you can use darkness to be deceiving. You know, you can make a corner in your haunted house just by aiming lights a certain way, really dark, and have an actor in that corner that no one can see, and then have them come out into the lights. I mean, just extremely simple things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like masks with lights in them, and like maybe people walk through darkness. There's nothing creepier than that. You're walking in a dark hallway, and all of a sudden something's right there. Oh,
Yeah.
that's freaky.
Yeah, that's one thing new haunts really need to focus on, is doing something different. If you're going to have the same thing as everybody else, you know, then people aren't going to come. They're going to go to a place that they've known for
Right.
a long time that does the same things.
Exactly.
So definitely try and think outside the box.
Right, and and you can push the haunt genre forward, like like the. Right now, it seems to be going. It seems to really be going to the torture aspect now, where the blackout haunted houses and the scare house. Travel Channel just had a special. If you have the chance to watch it, it's called Halloween Craziest. You need to see the blackout haunted house. The stuff they do to you there. They put your head in bags and lick you and shit. And
Which I'm not sure if I'm okay
I'm not
with.
sure if I would be okay with that. We haven't had a chance. There's none around us. Scare house is, but we are not going to make it to that this year. We might try next year, but I don't know. I like being touched, but I don't really know if I like being
Tortured.
confined and tortured.
Yeah, there's a difference. And
Yeah. 'Cause,
which again, they're pushing the boundaries on what.
I mean, that's cool, but
It's.
it's something. I mean, I like the idea, but at the same time, it kind of freaks me out. But it's probably just because I haven't been exposed to that yet. Some people, the haunted houses that we go to, really freak them out, but they don't really do that to us anymore. We just appreciate and enjoy them as like watching a good horror movie. They don't really scare us, but we like to watch them. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I would like watching myself be tortured, but maybe we'll find out next year.
We'll find out.
We'll see how okay I am with being tortured.
Yeah. So, if I don't know how it's going to look, but we did get a new camera, so like things hopefully will like look better. We're trying to upgrade, and we plan on making more movies soon. We're actually going to be filming a little short thing this week, which I'm not sure how it's going to turn up. It's a really interesting concept.
Yes.
It's just a real small thing, but you should be looking for that within the next week or two. That will be up. Also, make sure to check out our other haunt reviews and our one movie we do have up there now. And like I said, the next review we will be filming, which we're actually going to be filming it right after this, is Wells Township Haunted House. And that is definitely one you want to see, and that will be a normal episode in review. So I think that is all for this episode then.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks.